Warning: the film you are about to see is merely an observation of what goes on in the customer service world and not meant to offend anyone. But if the subject matter does offend you, then you have never worked in retail and don't know the blunt force of an angry customer.
Do you believe in the quote, "the customer is always right"?
Am I the customer or am I the customer service rep?
No, but fake it till you make it, man. I mean, you have to put on a smile and say like, yeah, you're okay. You know, just do it until they're happy.
No, the customer's always wrong.
No. No, not in the sense if the customer is abusive.
Am I the customer? Then yes, the customer's always right. The double-sided coin.
The customer always right is a great mindset to live by, especially in situations like retail. But at the same time, it's I think operationally there definitely needs to be a line defined where this is more of a mindset and not a way to react in situations always, and like a law that governs exactly how we operate in the service industry.
How did the quote come to be, you may ask?
Well, the customer is always right. Quote has been there for a long time, as long as I can remember.
I think it was an awesome marketing idea and slogan and phrase that came out, to have more business, to sell more items.
Basically because customers felt, I guess in the industry, that there was a lot of misrepresentation in business, is that you weren't always getting consistent product or consistent service. You decided to put the customer first instead of, I guess, what maybe was considered misleading the customer.
My understanding is that it originated with Harry Gordon Selfridge, who was the founder of a department store in London, Selfridges, which is still around today.
It seems like we take it too far to one end of the spectrum in order to move that medium somewhere where you're trying to get it to go, in order to increase the service, increase the hospitality, increase what you're offering as a business in any of these industries. You probably put into some kind of employee packet that was internal, that you were training your employees, a phrase that probably said the customer's always right.
There's a small belief that it actually wasn't created by one man, but by many during the early 1900s, as many experts would point out. Let's hear what one has to say.
Though the idea that a customer's view was more important than the retailer's did occur in the late 19th century. Along with Harry Gordon Selfridge, there was John Wanamaker and Marshall Field. Marshall was famous for the statement, "Give the lady what she wants." That reflects not only the customers get to choose what the store carries, but also during this time, most of the patrons were female. Country stores had select merchandise that only the customers could pick from. If you asked for a linen fabric, the owner would show you what he had and would haggle with you about the price. Many items would have been held in a back room and a clerk would have to find it, and then they would decide what to show the customer and how much they would have been charged. After department stores were developed, customers were exposed to more options and suppliers, so retailers had to work harder for the sale.
You've heard of horror stories that if not all, but many customer service employees have to deal with on a regular basis.
I don't think the customer is always right, because they're after something for themselves, to benefit themselves at the expense of somebody else.
I was selling watches at the time, and I guess the watch had literally fallen off his wife's wrist. The blame was on us because the watch wasn't done up properly on her wrist, and therefore it was defective, and warranty issues were to be then handled through us. So he came in when I wasn't at work. So I promptly got a phone call from on my day off from the staff, and the customer then grabbed the phone from the staff to yell at me at home, to tell me how defective and wrong this watch was, and how put out he was, and how much money he spent was not worth it, and just basically go on a tirade for me. I said I would have to look at the watch to determine if it was a defect or if we can refund the money then. And if you could leave the watch with me, I'd be able to look at it the next day. He didn't like that response, so he stormed off, didn't leave any information, and went away. So I waited about 2 weeks, so I was hoping for something to come up while I was at work, but of course another day off, the customer comes in and is upset again. So again, the staff called me and I said, okay, I can refund your money and just leave the watch so I can have a look at it, and then I can do that when I'm back at work because the staff isn't authorized to do so. Once again, this wasn't acceptable for him, so he stormed off, and I had to call him when I was at work, and I explained to him again we were going to give him his money back, and then he said that was not good enough, that he was a lawyer, and now I owed him for his time that he spent coming into the store while I wasn't there. And he started going off and yelling at me and saying he wanted to sue me and wanting to get his money. I said, we can't proceed with this. Of course, then you can speak with our company lawyer and representative if that's the issue. He said, no, I just want it resolved. I just feel like I should be compensated for parking or gas or something. He wanted to get out of this, so I proceeded to say that we could not do that, and I would bring it up with the owner, of course, to see what we may be able to help him with. The watch was never broken, it just wasn't done up right on the wrist.
No matter how much a customer may push your buttons, they do indeed come first. They can be reasoned with, but they will not wait for you.
To defend them a little bit, I mean, people in the industry do pass off, you know, go see this guy, go see that guy, and it usually comes down the ladder, which is to us. And we're the last guy that they usually stop and talk to. So at that point, they are, you know, fed up and they want things done.
Nowadays, I'm finding retailers, et cetera, who used to put more importance on that, are more looking at their bottom line. If you took that phrase and put it back where the customer is always right, I think that would generate more sales. You're always more concerned about how much money the business is making you. The customer's not the first priority.
Are they always right? Nobody's always right, but the customer is still always the customer. And if that's the intent of the statement, to say, hey, let's keep the person in the proper perspective, who they are, what they represent to our business, and that statement creates that type of mindset, then I think it's very relevant. But if somebody's going to take the statement literally, then I think that it's going to, you know, take them off course a little bit.
This is the great debate. Round 1.
One reason why the customer is not always right is simply factual. They will state things that are not true. They will have misunderstood terms or conditions, and they will believe that they're absolutely right. And many customers will actually use this phrase, the customer's always right, to try to convince you that they are right, but they're just not. Sometimes as a business, you need to stick to your guns and make sure that you actually enforce the rules that are in place.
You absolutely need to, in a healthy way, protect, you know, the business and do what you're there to do, provide the service or the product that you're there to provide. At the other end of the counter or at the phone or, you know, the person that's creating the transaction is a person. And I mean, if they want to get into the details of the transaction, the legalistic details, then yeah, there's a black and white. But at the end of the day, there's still the customer. So I think it's situational.
The future of face-to-face customer service will disappear almost completely as retail becomes more self-served. Once there was a time that the relationship and handshake meant something. Companies are required to tailor their offering to an ever-shrinking customer base. Gone are the days of the store that can be all things to all people. In the near future, is there ever going to be a time when we will see this reference become obsolete?
I just don't see it kind of working anymore today. I mean, with the internet and everything and being able to buy so many different things and have different kinds of transactions all the time.
Yeah, I mean, eventually everything will be automated and you won't have to deal with a person anymore. You'll just deal with a robot.
There's a huge risk buying something from a company that you don't know and don't trust, especially when you're trusting the internet to transfer money. You're opening yourself to getting ripped off. Since the belief that everything can be had by a click of the mouse nowadays, does online shopping affect people's expectations with a company in terms of product quality and pricing?
Personally, right now, I think retail is an industry heading towards extinction. A good retail operation online will have a very good ticketing and service system in place in order to take care of their customers and meet their needs. And a lot of times it's going to be delivery issues.
Round 2.
this attitude that the customer is always right is so damaging is that it hurts employees. So let's say you're an employee in a store somewhere, right? And you know, some customer comes in, is really rude and unpleasant, is demanding this and that and the other, is threatening to sue or to never come back. And you just do what you have to, right? You're a loyal employee of the store. You try to enforce the rules that you've been told to enforce. The customer keeps complaining, says the customer is always right, goes to your manager, and what will very, very often happen is the manager will say, okay, let's give the customer what they want, the customer's always right, let's try to avoid further unpleasantness. So you as an employee were trying to do the right thing, and your manager overrules you and gives whatever this, you know, gives this rude customer whatever they want. And the employees I've talked to about this see this as a massive betrayal. They were trying to do the best they could within the rules they've been taught, and they got overruled. In fact, quite often they will get criticized, they will be penalized by the manager, even though all they were doing was what they were told to do. And on top of that, you get the added unfairness that this rude customer now gets whatever they wanted, which just feels really wrong and unfair.
We need to flip this around. We've all been customers, and if we go to a restaurant and the server there says, sorry, I can't do that, how do you feel as a customer? You're like, what do you mean you can't do that, right? You haven't even tried. So then you speak to the manager, and the manager has different resources that they can apply to fix the situation, or that they could apply to remedy the situation. And then they use the tools that they have to satisfy the customer. It has nothing to do with the customer. That's a breakdown of internal, empowering the frontline individuals to fix situations. If the manager has the ability to fix it, then the employees should be aware of what resources they have to fix it, so the manager doesn't have to.
Since there are always two sides to the coin, can businesses side with customers over the employee?
In a lot of ways, it has been a conflict. In some ways, you should trust your employees and understand who they are as people better than some of the customers' rantings. And I think when you give in to customers, it sets a precedent of bad behavior, and you're rewarding that bad behavior and saying to your employees you don't really trust what they're doing.
What I would want customers or employers to really hear, and it's basically customers need to actually research their own stuff before they try and buy it. Stop depending so much onto the employees, and employers, stop treating your staff like they're numbers, because you're not going to get anywhere with that.
These two guys come and buy a barbecue. So this was probably in April, May. Well, in August or September, these two guys come back and they want to return their barbecue. It's completely trashed, and I'm looking at this and I'm saying, we can't replace this. We can't replace this. And they said, well, this is your thing. It says that we have a year warranty. And I'm looking at the guy and I said, well, obviously it worked pretty good because it's got all this crap on it. I said, why do you want to return it? He says, well, because I just discovered that if we get something delivered from Ontario into Hull, Quebec, which is Quebec, they don't have to pay the provincial sales tax, which was $7. So I told them, no, I'm not going to do it. And then, lo and behold, they went to the manager, and my manager did it for them. Now you know why Eaton's isn't in business anymore.
Part of the experience of shopping in a department store in the late 19th and early 20th century involved the feeling of luxury. Showgirls and clerks waited on customers. There were doormen, coat checks, and parcel deliveries. Visiting the store was a way to spend leisure time. You could get your hair done, have tea in the salon, attend a concert. Women trying on clothes would have a shop assistant literally helping them in and out of their dresses, at a time when middle-class Americans were less likely to have servants in their home. The department store was a place where customers could feel that their every whim would be indulged. store competition was very fierce, and so stores offered amenities like store credit and easy return policies to encourage customer loyalty. This meant that unscrupulous customers could do things like return garments even after wearing them, or try to get refunds on goods for no good reason. Maintaining that relationship with the customer was thought to be worth the minor abuses.
Prior to this, we had discussed, and I'm going way back to the 50s, which I did not experience, but when people bought a brand new car, the salesperson would actually drive the car to your house, hand you the keys, and light a cigar for you. That's name one place that even gets close to that.
Round 3.
Some customers are just not worth it. You know, if you have this client who keeps coming back to your business, but also keeps demanding more goods and services, or keeps demanding discounts, you know, under the guise of the customer's always right, that customer might actually be losing you money in the long term, not to mention all the aggravation and frustration they cause. Your business might actually be better off without that person as a client, and maybe you need to fire that customer because they're just not worth it. So that's another reason why the customer's always right can be damaging to your business.
Is every customer a perfect fit for every business? Absolutely not. Every customer is worth it. Maybe your business model isn't the best fit for that person. Maybe you like high end and that's a commodity-based business where you can't squeeze blood from a stone. Maybe you like the lowest price, but that particular company that you're looking to make a purchase from is all about high-end service, attention to detail, and so you're going to pay a higher price for it.
Normally, encounters like these reveal certain customer behaviors and attitudes.
I think it tends to make a lot of people very cynical, particularly on the customer service end, where, you know, we're trying to do our best to help a customer, and, you know, if they're being unreasonable and unrealistic. Two things I think need to happen. One, the people dealing with the customers need to receive better training on how to set realistic expectations with their customers so that they don't go overboard. But at the same time, I think for a lot of people that are, you know, on the front lines and dealing with very unrealistic customers, it just leads to a lot of stress and job dissatisfaction.
The irony of the whole situation, I think, is that probably 90% of the population in Canada at some point in time worked retail, whether it's in restaurants, stores like myself, car salespeople, and you would think that the population would become a little bit more respectful of each other, having themselves gone through those experiences.
I think you'd have to put some of the difficult customers into retail for a while to understand the variety of behaviors that are improper. It takes some time to understand how hard it is to be on the other side and be the person in the receiving end of all that, disrespectful, rude, loud, invasive behavior.
I had one customer that when I was demonstrating a stove, and she said to me, she was asking me something about the convection, where the parts were. And I said, well, I'm not a technician. I don't know where the parts were. And she said, well, you should know that. And her husband was there the whole time, very quiet. You can tell that he did not wear the pants in the family, per se. So I finally looked at her and I said, what do you do for a living? And she said, I'm a ward clerk in a hospital. And I said, can you do open heart surgery? And she said, no. I said, well, you should know. And of course, I heard about that for days on it.
There are some people I've actually had stick up for me because they're like, yeah, I understand that you did nothing wrong. I know that's the policy. How stupid are they not to know what the return policy is? It says right there on the cash register desk. It says right there in their pamphlet. I believe that those are the people who've worked in retail industries. The people who haven't worked in retail industries definitely treat us like we are absolutely nothing. We should be either talking to them or not talking to them, kissing their feet, whatever it is to make them happy. They're so lost.
I think everybody should work in service so that they can figure out how to create an outcome that maybe wasn't there in the beginning. if you're expecting something from someone else and you don't get it, you're going to be disappointed. But I don't think that's the job of a service provider. I think the service provider the purpose is to be open to what that other person is looking for from you, and to be able to provide it to the best of your ability and within the, the business, within the culture, and within what's good business for that specific company or industry.
Even when you're not working, you can end up being a bystander to some unreasonably disruptive clientele.
I try and interject if that does happen. I was in line as a fast food place, and somebody was very upset that another franchised branch of the same company had always shortchanged him a few cents every time he had gotten his coffee. He felt that he wasn't getting the proper change back, and he was ranting to the employees for quite some time before I finally interjected, and I kind of said, it's not their fault, it's not their store, it's not their problem, and for a few cents you shouldn't really be concerned about this. So I try and step in line or try and make the person calm down for them, because if I have a place to say it, I feel like I should speak up, at least in a polite way, and help calm the issue a little bit.
Even walking through the center of a mall, people, you can tell the ones that are bad mood, because they just it's almost like they're trying to push you out of the way, or they're grumpy, they're muttering to themselves. Those are the kind of that maybe they got up late, but they think the whole world's done them wrong. So slow down, have a coffee. I don't know, take vitamins.
Round 4.
If you keep favoring the rude and unpleasant customers, the ones who keep demanding more and more and more, if you keep giving them whatever they want, what are you teaching your other customers? Let's say there's a huge line at the checkout registry in a supermarket, and this one customer is really rude, and that person actually gets what they wanted, even though that's not within the rules. Everybody else in that line in the supermarket will now know, oh, that's the way we get, better prices or discounts or more goods, or, get them to bend the rules. We do that by being really rude and unpleasant. So that will actually create a feeling of unfairness in a lot of people, and you will be teaching more of your customers to act in this completely rude and unreasonable way, which I think is probably in the end going to hurt your business more than anything else.
In nowhere has our dialogue involved being a doormat to anyone, and there's certain businesses that are a better fit for certain customers, but what I'm responding to is the judgmental language of an individual that is in the marketplace and has money to exchange for a product and service, and a business is open for business looking for someone to make a purchase, and that's a good fit, right? That's a good fit. It's a hand in glove. It doesn't mean that everything is going to be yes, but what it does mean is that I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to understand what it is that you're looking for. And if I can do something about it, I will. And if I can't, I'll find out where I can, or I'll direct you to someone or another company that can. Because I'm in the service business. If you were looking for something and someone just said, no, sorry, I can't help you. You're like, well, wait a second. I'm in a restaurant. I know chicken isn't on the menu, but in this we're not a vegan establishment, but you don't have chicken. No, I'm sorry. Well, I think you should have chicken. You know what? We don't have chicken, but you know what? There's two restaurants down the street. I will call them right now, and I'll get you a reservation. I'll get you in. Whatever. You know what I mean? So it's not about being a doormat to a customer, but it's about understanding what they're looking for and getting them what they need. And maybe it's not with you.
I think one of the worst experiences I had was like power tripping customers, and one in particular who claimed to know, the owner of the business, and he's gonna call him and get me fired, and I better take like half the price off of his large purchase. It was like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So kind of like empty threats where someone's saying that they're threatening my job security because I'm not giving them 50% off. So it was things like that really got to me.
Myself, I've pressed 7 assault with deadly weapon charges against people in the bar industry from people thinking they were right when they were getting kicked out. 3 knives pulled out on me, a couple guns. I literally kicked someone out, and they went out in the parking lot and got into their car and came at me in their car, and I had to jump on the hood of their car and ride the hood of the car to the parking lot of this bar until I was slung off.
There have always been abuses of return policies or customers that are impolite to staff. Generally, businesses recognize that keeping patrons happy is essential to their business. A disgruntled customer who complains about a store on any social media hurts the bottom line. To employees within the store, this can be frustrating. But in a free market, there is always going to be an incentive to try and keep customers happy for fear that they will go to the competition.
When it comes to retail, most consumers always go after the best deal, and if not, something for nothing. But when they find it, is it adequate?
In a lot of situations, and it's whether it's wholesale, retail, or anything else, there are some people that think you're at a garage sale, and you know what, that you can keep going lower and lower and lower, and or they'll say, oh, it'll go on sale again. They don't believe your sales. It's just a thing. I guess it's because we have such a pot of cultures now in one country, or that it's whether it was back in the 1920s. As we get more people coming over and over, it's people don't believe the retail price is what it is. It's they think that it can be maneuvered. It can be they can make it better, and it's a lot of cases it can't, and it's we're not hurting anyone's feelings. That's the price. You don't go into a major grocery chain and if it's $1.50 for the carrots, offer the clerk $1. So why do you do it at a furniture store or an appliance store or anywhere?
Someone talking to a manager friend of mine who was asking for an extra 40% off of something that was already 50% off, and she was becoming incredibly belligerent to him and was just not accepting that it was already discounted and he could not discount it any further, but she still wanted to scream and yell until she got her point across. Thank God my friend didn't actually do anything about it and just let her just cry.
It's like a different kind of war on China. Their pollution laws are super lax, right? Like all of our products come from China or India or third world countries where people are being exploited for money. So something that costs 60 cents to make, you'll pay anywhere from $20 to $500 for, Beats by Dre, the headphones or whatever. Some whiz guy calculated all the items in the Beats by Dre, and it costs $11 and something cents to make a set of Beats by Dre, but they sell them for what? $160. So when I know the human cost, the cost on human lives and the earth is just astronomical, but dollar-wise, we are all overpaying for all of our products, and the pockets are being padded of people who own all this stuff, It's kind of a vicious, ugly cycle.
Those who work in customer service vary in age, and the impact affects everyone differently. You will often hear, "Don't take it personally," and "It's not a career, it's just a job."
It's gonna be taken personally. I've had don't take this personally, but I don't really like your boots, or don't you think your heels are a little too high, or don't take this personally, but I think this is a piece of crap. I didn't make it. I'm just here to sell it.
I try not to take anything personally when it comes to customers. I think that's just an excuse. It's kind of like, don't be offended, and then they go and say something offensive, or I don't mean to be offensive. I'm just going to follow my next sentence with something offensive. So I think saying that is kind of just their excuse to say what they want and feel like there's no consequence to it, and that's not really fair.
I think that's like saying to someone who's really mad, relax, calm down. If anything, those words make you want to freak out more. That's kind of undermining your experience and not taking what you're saying for real. I think it's better to talk about it if something happened, get it out, feel your feelings, and move on. But to just be blatantly told don't take it personally or calm down, it's rude. I think it's rude.
The most annoying comment you'll hear is, "Just find another job." In this day and age, most people who work in customer service positions tend to be either university or college students who don't have the luxury of just leaving their job whenever they want.
It's a little bit harder for students, yeah, because you have to work around your personal schedule as well as your school schedule. So it makes it a little bit more difficult. A lot of businesses aren't as accommodating to student schedules as we would need typically, but it ends up being a little bit harder for sure, I think.
The economy sucks as it is. Like I have family members who just came to Canada and they're very well established. They got like a degree in IT and they've worked at all kinds of jobs already. And even so, they still can't find like a well-paying job.
A lot of students have like very set schedules, and like most places are understanding about like working around schedules and stuff. So it's not easy just to find another job right off the beginning.
I feel sorry for the younger people today. It's just not what it was. In the mid-'70s, for example, you didn't even have to have a resume. You just showed up. You filled in an application, or you would just say there's any job. Sometimes they would just hire you. That's it. But nowadays it's resume writing, introductory letters. Do you have an education? It's a job to get a job.
Now, we can't say students just have it hard, since many of you think that they are just millennials complaining. It's also not easy for those who have families and just trying to provide for them.
Some people put, almost a lifetime into a job, and not only that, at a certain age or point, and even these days, like, jobs are scarce. It's not as easy as you think just to quit and find another job. I mean, yeah, you could find another job, but the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
Round 5, final round.
Probably the number one reason why the customer is always right is a bad mantra, is that it makes your staff unhappy. Because what you're doing is you're consistently telling your staff, you know what, you're second rate, the customer is more important, you don't really matter, and if I have a choice between making you happy and the customer happy, I'm going to choose the customer. Now, as we know from a lot of research, happy staff give better customer service. When you give better customer service, you make more money. So if you are, as a business leader, you're consistently making your staff unhappy, you will actually end up hurting your bottom line. And that is another reason why you should ditch this mantra, the customer is always right. I mean, sometimes the customer is right, absolutely, but they're not always right. And if you take that attitude, you will consistently favor them over your employees, and you will make your employees frustrated and miserable. And frustrated and miserable employees don't give good customer service. That is just the way it is.
I think it goes back to internal education, value, which is the only thing customers pay for, regardless of how they define it. Value is in the eyes of the customer. And if the customer isn't satisfied and willing to pay for your value, then they'll do it somewhere else. I'm repeating myself because it's fundamental. And if your employees isn't educated on what is going to make the client happy, make the customer happy, make the customer return, make the customer provide referrals, make the customer call and tell 10 of their friends so that they come to you. If your staff isn't educated on what is going to make those things happen, that's a failure on the company. That has nothing to do with the customer having wrong expectations. And going back to your very first question to me, do I think the customer is always right? No, but the customer is always the customer, right? I heard a quote one time, before I got married, before I asked my wife to marry her, and it was, when's the best time to tell your girlfriend you love them? And the answer is before someone else does. So when's the best time to take care of a customer, regardless if they're right? It's now, before another company does.
Judges' consensus, no winner.
Today, on one hand, consumers can take this to extremes, where they demand certain services or abuse store policies. But we should also recognize that today consumers are asked to do much more than they were in the past. Certain businesses, such as wholesale stores, boast about having very little service and have a warehouse-style decor to suggest that it is a good deal for consumers. Customers often have to transport items themselves. They do not have people to consult, about which items are preferable. Even grocery stores are now making people check their own items out. So in their attempt to increase profits, many retailers have basically eliminated much of the service aspect of the shopping experience. It then does not seem surprising that many customers will assert themselves if they feel that an item has not lived up to their expectations. The growth of online retailing has also meant that consumers are used to quick, faceless transactions and easy return policies.
Retail as we know it is evolving, and the day when you're going to have these large giant supercenters of people coming in to your store is behind us. I think more and more, just like in the late 1800s, early 1900s, where people didn't have access to stores and they used mail order to make their purchases. People are evolving back to that, where we've got so much selection, so much opportunity, and that there is so much online competition happening right now. I think retail is as we know it, is on its way out, and we're going to see more and more business going online in order to survive.
Retail's a tough gig, and if you're dealing with customers and service, it's probably the hardest part of the job. People often underestimate the idea of service as being an easy job, and that's why people take it. It's really not. It is something that mentally you have to be tough on. You have to be mentally prepared as people come in. You have to be ready to say the right thing, and you're constantly being evaluated and judged if you ever say something wrong. So if you ever slip up, it can cost you a big amount of money or a big problem of opportunity in the future. So the stress is real, and I think people kind of forget what people actually are doing. I would say for anyone complaining at the fast food industries, they should have to pay to complain, because what they're doing to those employees in fast food places at minimum wage is more work than most people could ever handle. So I think people, if anywhere could appreciate anyone, it's the people that are working minimum wage more, because they are doing a maximum amount of effort for the littlest amount of money. And I think that's kind of an injustice in our society. People working hard are not getting ahead